We are live. Sorry about that. I few minutes late. I had to deal with something quickly, but we're here now. I hope everybody is doing well, having a great Tuesday. I am having an excellent Tuesday myself because I am one day closer to jolly old England, Scotland in particular. Well, England and Scotland. Visiting family. I can't wait to see them again, going for the AVDA awards ceremony. It's going to be it's going to be a wonderful trip. I hope you guys enjoyed yesterday. Speaking of travel, I got my hello Dylan. I got my passport. Um, I was, that got me thinking, as I talked about in yesterday's stream, the what it means to be a Mason and a citizen, how the two ultimately I think are complementary to one another. Why that is. I enjoyed writing about that a little bit on social media, posting some pics of that. And yeah, we're here now. Today, I want to talk about some economic things I noted, primarily from the United States. However, for now, let's just wait to see who joins. The first hour, as always, is just us hanging out, chatting. So, anything you want to talk about when it comes to Freemasonry? Any thoughts you have, positive, negative, or neutral, please let me know. By the way, premiering November 23rd at 6 p.m. Eastern is our Square and Compass podcast episode 183, Worshipful Brother Andy Albright, regarding his work, Masonic Comedia. He is also nominated for a Arcana Veritas Distinction Award. So can't wait to see him get it. Or can't wait to see him in Scotland. He's one of 3 finalists, so we'll see if he is successful. And I included within the description to that video a link as to where you can order Comedia Masonica, or Masonic Comedia, I should say, through Amazon. For the time being, though, let's just give it a little bit more time. Let's see who joins. Please hit that like and subscribe button. And even though I won't be posting on this channel while I'm away, on this YouTube channel, I will be posting on my personal accounts, my personal social media, so you guys can follow me and my adventures there. Just because obviously I don't want to be, while I'm there visiting family, I'm not going to be streaming, but still on Cameron Adamson, Facebook, stuff like that, I'll be posting what I'm up to. And then when I come back, obviously I'll have plenty of pictures and stuff and plenty of things to talk about. Masonic Comedia, or no, it should be. There actually is a book. I don't know if I have it on me. I have to look for it. I got it years ago. I don't even remember where I put it. But it was a book of jokes that a master, like a worshipful master, could use to lighten up a lodge meeting. So jokes from the East, something to that effect. Which it basically was a geezer joke compendium. It was kind of like the Norm Macdonald roast of Bob Saget, if you've ever seen that. A lot of those jokes. No, it's Masonic Comedia. It's a review of the Divine Comedy by Dante. And particularly finding within it parallels to Freemasonry or lessons that a Mason can take with him in his Masonic journey. And it's the entire Divine Comedy. It's the Inferno, Purgatory, and Paradise. Andy Albright, the author, reviews all 3 books and then finds how we within Freemasonry can apply Dante's journey to our own Masonic journey or Masonic career. Though honestly, again, that book of Masonic jokes, I should find it. That should be what I do on my next 24-hour live stream, which will be in December. I should just do a whole 24 hours of geezer jokes. Half the punchlines will be, "It's a secret." And how is your day going, Mr. Keeps? I hope that you are doing well as always. One day closer to um, the weekend. As I mentioned, I've got a third degree coming up on November 21st. As a result, there will be no November 21st live stream. There will be no November 21st 24-hour live stream. Normally, the 21st of every month, I do a 24-hour live stream. Not the case this November. I have my third degree. Instead, I'm going to hold my normal 1 p.m. live stream, which I hold every Monday through Friday. That'll be from 1 to 2. Then 2 to 3, I'll have a live stream that's exclusive for Patreon members. And then 3 to 4, I'll have a live stream exclusive for YouTube channel members. So become a member, either Patreon or YouTube. And yeah, check them out. It should be. Yes, that was very funny back in the day. By the way, Dad, don't put it on here because don't share personal information on YouTube. But shoot me off an email. I need actually, if you've got it, I need your birthday. I know day and month, but I always forget which year it was, whether it's 53 or 52. But I also need Grandma Lily's and Grandpa's birthdays. I'm in the midst of applying for my UK citizenship, and I need the birthdays of my paternal and maternal, my paternal grandparents. So your birthday, your dad's birthday, and your mom's birthday, if you know them, if you remember them. If you don't, it's not a big deal. Like I said, I may still also need your birth certificate, but I'm wondering if they'll let me take an electronic version of it instead and send the email. That's right. I mean, I am British already. I just not officially. I was thinking about it for a while. I just never got around to it for whatever reason. I was always kind of doing other things, but I figured might as well. I guess it's the first generation, so you know my dad is British, therefore I can be British also. I'd have to go to a citizenship ceremony here in Toronto, I believe. Not terribly expensive, if I recall correctly, 130 pounds, which is about 270 Canadian, which isn't terrible, to be honest. Hello, Masonic. I hope you're doing well. Also, interestingly enough, a public service announcement, PSA, for anybody who's ever considering traveling to England. Not only do you need a passport, but you also need to apply for an ETA, an electronic traveler's. I can't remember what the A is. Electronic traveler's assessment. Basically, you need to fill out an electronic form before you go. I did mine. It was no trouble at all. It was like 12 pounds, like 21 Canadian dollars, something like that. Not hard to fill out, and it lasts for 2 years. So you fill it out once, and for the next 2 years, I can travel to England with already having the authorization and my passport. ETA. XLIX. What's your knowledge on Freemasons? Well, you'd have to ask the audience, and they can say. I think it's pretty good. XLIX. I've been a Mason for 20 years. Or thereabouts. I'm certainly an expert on my Masonic experiences, the things I love about it, and I think I'm fairly well versed when it comes to what I think Freemasonry needs to do to potentially, survive, and its kind of current state in terms of membership numbers, things like that. The esoteric ritual stuff, I'm conversant in it. I certainly know the basics. There are a lot of Masons who know far more than me about kind of the history of ritual and the history of Freemasonry itself, like the Regius poem, things like that. I'd say decent, 7, 8 out of 10. That what I would give myself, if you had to ask me overall knowledge of Freemasonry, I'd say 7.5 out of 10 is what I'd give it at. Do you know what the forbidden divine knowledge? You're going to have to be a little bit more specific on that one, XLIX. I'm not sure if you're referring to something from Scottish Rite, which I've heard of before. The idea of, the name of the supreme being, or the word, seeking the word. I think that might be what you're referring to. I don't know for sure. Well, Balls of Steel, you can still hit like and subscribe. What is Freemasonry? Freemasonry is an umbrella term for a civic organization, primarily thought of in fraternal terms, but there is a women's side as well. But think of it as a civic group or a social group, an umbrella term referring to the civic and social groups, which evolved from stonemasonry guilds out of medieval Europe in the 15th and 16th century. Are you talking about, sorry, are you talking about the key of, from Isaiah? Are you talking about from Isaiah? Uh, uh, XLIX? There's no way you can be, I am a human being. Garen, well, it's not a secret society because here I am talking about it on YouTube, and I'm proud to talk about being a Freemason. There are private elements to being a Freemason. I don't even like to use the term secret. I prefer the term private, because secret, for some reason, probably for valid reasons, oftentimes has a negative connotation to it. Like people are keeping secrets because there's something nefarious. I prefer private, right? Because privacy, there's many valuable reasons to keep things private. There are private elements to Freemasonry, but it's not a secret society. I'm proud to talk about it. You are reptilian. I seen your shape shift. No one's gonna find you. Don't pay attention to the chat. The chat is, never worry about what people are saying on the internet. The internet's not real life. Having said that, Garon, I'm happy to talk to you. Keep answering questions. I'll do my best to answer them. So what have you been studying, Masonic? What are some of the things you've been studying when it comes to Freemasonry? Gym rat. I like going to the gym myself. I used to hate exercise, but I've gotten better at it. Um, what is a Freemason? So a Freemason is a member of a Masonic lodge, right? It's a designation of membership. Kind of like, if you go to, if you're a gym member kind of thing, right? Freemason is a member of a Masonic lodge. It's a member of the oldest civic organization or social club group in the world. Yes, that's correct, Balls of Steel. Jim Rat, welcome, by the way. Please take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button. Thank you, Amariza. I appreciate that. All right. Nobody's running and nobody's hiding from anybody. I think I may have to put some people in a timeout for a second. Because nobody's looking for anybody or hiding or any of that nonsense. Thank you, Amariza. I appreciate that again. Do you have any thoughts on Freemasonry? What is thought within the four? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Jim Rat. There is no, Freemasons are free to kind of think for themselves on a variety of topics. We have a lot of diversity of opinion within Freemasonry. I suppose the most consistent kind of philosophies are those of brotherly love, relief, and truth. Unless yes, I got a big head indeed. Welcome, Michael Moore. Thank you for being here. Oh, that's something fun to research. Well, let me start with Garen's question, then move to Jim Rat. So Masonic Lodge um, created? Well, like everything, it wasn't like planned, like all the best things. It kind of happened a little bit by accident. So Freemasonry, what we think of when we're talking about Freemasonry, right? It evolved from stonemason guilds. So millions of years ago, right, human beings and human ancestors started to shape and work with stone. In some ways, you could argue the history of humanity is the history of stone, right? It was our ability to create stone tools that allowed us to evolve. But anyways, the shaping and use of stone has been a very important part of human history since the earliest humans, through to Neolithic structures, through to the Goblet through to the pyramids, et cetera, right? And as people became more and more skilled in the ability to work with stone, to shape it, to build with it, to use it for human happiness through the building of homes and tools and walls and other things humans needed, um, eventually a specific type of craftsman started to form. And those craftsmen were known as masons, stonemasons, right? Men primarily who built things out of stone. As with any craftsman organization, over time they formed themselves into guilds, which were basically the ancient equivalent of unions, right? And so they existed in Rome. They existed in many different locations, but by the Middle Ages in Europe, and especially in England, you had stonemason guilds, stonemason trade unions. Um, Over time, these stonemasons started to allow into their guilds, into their unions, what were called speculative masons. Those were men who did not want to work with stone, did not want to be operative masons and build things out of stone. However, they wanted to be part of a union because they wanted the social benefit of it. They wanted to, you know, have the social safety net of being part of a group. They wanted to belong to something. The human, desire ultimately is to belong, right? Um, and over time, the demand on stone masonry, the demand on stone work became less and less prevalent, where at the same time, the number of men who wanted to join to take advantage, not even to take advantage of, but just to pursue the social aspect of Masonry grew. And eventually you had Freemasonry, which basically it became the social club, the civic organization version of stonemasonry. It created ceremonies and rituals, much of it modeled on stonemasonry as a way to form bonds of brotherhood and friendship. And it has existed since 1717. I mean, the in some ways when people say like why did Freemasonry form, it formed for the same impetus that any social group forms, the human desire to belong. Why do kids in the playground create clubs, create tree houses, right? And why do people create knitting clubs? Why do people create any type of club or group or organization? Human nature is such that um, we want to form groups, we want to belong to something bigger than ourselves. It's in our nature. Well, fair enough. So when you talk about first person of color, first black person, well, I mean, no Freemason necessarily has tremendous power or influence. Team MMX. Um, I wouldn't describe it in that way. I mean, well, I guess it depends what you mean by influence. Like within Freemasonry, if you've been a Mason for a long time, you may have a certain level of influence or cachet. But the person who runs the show is ultimately the worshipful master of the lodge. Um, I mean, the first Black Freemason in America, anyways, was Prince Hall. He became a Mason 1775 in Boston, the beginning of Prince Hall Freemasonry. He was actually became a member of an Irish lodge at the time, and Irish Army soldiers made him a member. And eventually he started his own fraternal Masonic order, specifically for black men. If so, it's not a secret society, Jim Rat. I mean, because I'm here talking about it, right? And I love talking about it. Rather, it is a, thank you, Masonic. That's very kind of you. Rather, it is a society with private elements, right? There are elements that we won't share and talk about. And the reason for that, Jim Rat, I always give this example. So forgive me for chewing my food twice if you heard this before. Let's imagine, Jim Rat, that you have a family recipe that gets passed down from your grandparents to your parents to you. You want to pass it on to your kids. You're not going to share the family recipe with the public. You're not going to put it on the internet. Not because there's anything nefarious about the recipe. Rather, maintaining the privacy of that recipe is a way for you to maintain the bonds between the past, current, and future generations of your family. Freemasonry is the same way. We have, we have rings or whatever. We have stuff like that, but that's not what Freemasonry passes down from past to future generations, right? What Freemasonry passes down between its generations ultimately is its ritual, its ceremonies. If I start to share the secrets of those ceremonies on this channel or outside of Lodge, I am impacting the ability for our brethren to, I'm impacting those bonds. They become less strong. And also tradition, right? Freemasons are big on tradition. Certain things are kept private for traditional reasons. Yes, Garen. So the person in charge of the lodge is called a worshipful master. He usually has a year term, though it can be longer. And he is basically a CEO of the lodge. He actually doesn't even have a lot of power to make decisions. Rather, he is responsible for ensuring the lodge functions accordingly. So whatever the rules are of the bylaws and the Constitution, he is responsible for ensuring that the lodge complies with those rules and regulations. That doesn't necessarily mean they were Freemasons, Team MMX. I need to know more about what happened, things like that, right? Freemasonry, we don't have a ton of power in a political sense. Sometimes I wish we did, but we don't. We're a civic organization, a social group. We have no more power in politics than, let's say, the Rotary Club or the Moose or the Elk. So basically none at all. Sometimes I wish we had a little bit more, not even power. I don't think Freemasons should seek power. I think Freemasons should seek relevance. Sometimes I wish we were more relevant to our communities, but that's a different story altogether for a different day. I hope I answered your questions well. Jim Rat, let me know if I answered your questions. Hello. Hi, said hi. Thank you for being here. As always, any thoughts you have on Freemasonry? I was going to talk just about a few things I noted. Some economic news I found interesting that I think applies to Freemasonry. However, we will wait. The first hour is just me hanging out. All right, let's put this guy in a bit of a timeout over here. Thank you. Much appreciated, Michael Moore. As always, I very much appreciate all of your support, as well as, in general, all you do for Freemasonry, which is a lot. That's a good question. What do you think one of the biggest unfair criticisms of Freemasonry is out there? Well, obviously, so unfair is an interesting word to use there because, like, when I think of I do. It makes it fun. When I think of unfair criticisms, my natural tendency is to think of just not true, like false criticisms. But I don't know if those would be unfair. They're just lies. So, like some of the conspiracy stuff you see online that Freemasons sacrifice children, or that Freemasons are running some international criminal syndicate, or some even worse ones. You can believe it. Like, but I don't know if I call those unfair criticisms. They're just nonsense. They're just lies spread by conspiracy theories and a crazy Twitter algorithm. An unfair criticism. Hmm. And then you also have to ask the question, where from whence is the criticism coming, right? I would say the biggest unfair criticism that Freemasons have of Freemasonry is when a Freemason, oh, well, in that case, Jim Rat, yeah, that were involved in criminal enterprise, that were sacrificing anything from goats to children, I've heard somebody say we drink blood, that we're satanic, right? All that stuff isn't true. But I'm going to take your question and slightly change it, Jim Rat. What is so obviously there are many people who are not Freemasons who have criticisms of Freemasonry. There are many people though who are Freemasons who have criticisms of Freemasonry. They have criticisms from within the organization. And I would say the biggest unfair criticism that Masons have of the order is when a Mason says, right, Freemasonry is boring because all we do is read the minutes or pay the accounts. Reading the minutes, paying the accounts, that stuff's important. That stuff matters. You cannot have a well-functioning lodge if you are not handling the administrative business of, not even business, the administrative tasks of the lodge. The lodge will never be able to function or do the things it needs to do if it doesn't have decent record keeping, if it doesn't have um, decent accounting, right? If it doesn't have, if it's not fulfilling all of its civic and civil responsibilities, doing all the paperwork it needs to do for both its municipal, local governments, as well as for the Grand Lodges, right? So whenever somebody who's a Mason says, I didn't join Freemasonry to hear the minutes read, it's like, well, maybe you should pay more attention to those minutes, because any fun, quote unquote, exciting events that you want to hold, that you want to do within Freemasonry, good luck completing them if your lodge is not well functioned and well versed in administrative tasks. Um, right, and Michael Moore brings up a good point. It's as boring as or exciting as the group makes it. One of my favorite quotes of all times is "Boring people get bored." Um, if you get bored, then it's because you're a boring person, not because necessarily the subject matter is boring. B and Detail Gaming, you can hit the like and subscribe button. You can do that. Would be much appreciated. Tomorrow we'll be having fellowship at a local pub with our friends and lodge couples. We open up to everyone of legal age to get in the pub. Nice. Which pub is it, if you don't mind my asking? I would go, but I've got a Master Mason degree I gotta get ready for on the 21st, so I don't think I'll have time, sadly, to be heading to any pub nights. But as I noted, I just got my new passport, so, or my renewed passport, I should say. So might be worth trying to try it out. O'Malley's in Livonia, 5 Mile in Farmington. Awesome. What's the turnout looking like? Are you RSVPing, or are you just waiting for people to show up? Like, do you have a rough idea of how many people you can expect? And once again, Jim Rat, I hope I answered your questions well. On another interesting side note, this has nothing to do with Freemasonry, but it's the other thing I love. Um, It was released on this day in 1990, the old TV miniseries. Good afternoon. We do not rule the world, Cashless Kitchen, nor do we want to rule the world. That's not our goal. Again, I wish Freemasonry could be potentially more relevant to the world, but it's not trying to do so. I just wish it was more relevant to the world. Sometimes it's last minute. It's always last minute, Michael Moore. It's always last minute with Freemasonry. Half the memes I see about Freemasonry is a brother secretary losing his mind at a desk, trying to get people to pay their dues. What are your goals with this channel? So the goal of this channel, the first order goal is to promote the ways that Freemasonry was and is relevant to the communities in which it's located, and to create stories and post discussions of Masonic interest. The greater, the second order, or the more kind of overarching goal, is to find a way to turn my passion for Freemasonry into profession. I think if Freemasonry is going to survive, we cannot continue this idea that Freemasonry has to be separate from your work or your family. You have to find a way to integrate them all together. So if through this channel I can earn a living talking about and promoting Freemasonry, then maybe I can encourage other Freemasons that it's possible to dedicate your life to this thing called Freemasonry, not just once or twice a month or 3 times a month, or in the case of me, a few years ago, 20 times a month, whatever it was, but every day. I was, not anymore, but I was a lawyer, JJJIA. I actually have to deal with my professional license. It's suspended because I didn't pay my dues years ago. I never dealt with it, so it's on my list of things to deal with. Richard Wilkins, good question. I'm trying to think of the best way to answer it. Oh no, it's not a big deal. I just got to get it. Just got to deal with it. I keep meaning to, and then not do. It's a whole thing. I keep meaning to deal with it, and then getting sidetracked and not dealing with it, and then et cetera, et cetera. I'm trying to think about the proper way to answer your question, Richard Wilkins. So give me a second, because I want to make sure I answer it correctly. So Freemasonry is Freemasonry is not special, right? What's special is the relationship between Freemasonry and the Freemason. I'm going to use an example. Again, I've used it a million times. My favorite song in the world is Simple Man by Leonard Skinner. My second favorite song in the world is Prodigal by Blacktop Mojo. I always mention my second favorite song because more people need to hear that song. It's incredible. But the song itself, Simple Man, is not special. It's got chords, it's got lyrics. A million people can hear that song at the exact same time and have a million different reactions to it. Some will love it, some will hate it, some will think it's okay, and every reaction in between, right? Some, like me, it's my new favorite song. But again, it's not about the song. The song is just the song. It's something about me. It's something about my personality, my history, things that happened when I grew up, maybe, what's happening in my life when I hear the song, right? If I'm having a good day, a bad day, and I hear the song, whatever it is, all of that stuff forms who I am. And as a result of it, it forms a relationship with this song, Simple Man. Right before I heard the song Simple Man, it wasn't my favorite song. I heard it and then it became my favorite song. So when you say, do you consider alternative fraternities to be potentially as beneficial to Freemasonry? For me, no, right? First, there's, at least as far as I know, for some reason, there's something about me as an individual, whether it be how I grew up, what's in my DNA, what's happening in my life when I joined. For whatever reason, Freemasonry speaks to me in a way that nothing else ever really has, and I fell in love with it. But that's not to say that the person that for you, Richard Wilkins, you may find Freemasonry not that interesting. You may join the Elks, and that's what you love. You may join professional sports, and that's what you love. You may join a knitting club, and that's what you love, right? So I think every civic fraternal organization can be the best civic or fraternal organization for every individual. They have to find the one that suits them best. Just like, what is the alternative song to Simple Man? Well, for me, there is no alternative song. That's my favorite song, at least to my knowledge, right? But by the same token, there's a million other songs that could be better for somebody else. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, what makes Freemasonry special is the relationship that exists between the membership and the order. And that relationship is ultimately based on personal experiences, personal temperament, and personal history, and that can't be replicated. Every person needs to seek out that relationship for themselves, either in Freemasonry or in an alternative fraternal order, if they find that to be better suited to them. I hope that made sense. Let me know if it did or not. Actually, I train UFC. I have no legs, so I'd get my ass destroyed, but I train UFC. I train MMA, I should say. You are spiritual. Well, that is not the case, Larry, because Freemasonry is not a spirituality, nor is it a religion. Ricky, I'm fabulous, if that's what you're asking. I think Michael Moore is right. It can all be beneficial. Richard Wilkins, did I answer your question well? Let me know in the chat if I did, if it made sense to you. I'm doing well. How are you doing? Are you recovering still? I know you said it's going to be some months, but I hope that you are feeling better. Sure. I mean, again, I think the key word there, Richard, is potentially, because everybody's benefit is going to be slightly different. Like, one benefit I got from it that's very unique to me is it made me feel closer to my grandfather on my dad's side. My grandfather on my dad's side passed away before I was born, so I never got to meet him. Um, but he was a Freemason. And the fact that I'm a Mason and he was a Mason, and I know the rituals that he went through and the ceremonies he went through, right? I have that benefit of being connected to him. My grandfather on my mom's side uh, was also a Freemason, but I knew him, well. He was a part of my life. Thank you again, Masonic. He was a part of my life I forget when he passed away now. About 20 years ago, give or take. But all through when I was growing up, he was a part of my life and a big part of it. He never really talked about being a Freemason, but I always felt, close to him, like he was a part of my life. So being a Freemason, it's given me more kind of color on our relationship that I had with him, but not in the same way it does with my dad's father. Because I never met him, I feel like I kind of met him through Freemasonry in some ways. It also, more in general, again, it's like, how does listening to your favorite song benefit you? It just benefits you because you like it. You like the way it sounds. There's something about ritual ceremony that I like that speaks to me in a way that I just enjoy listening to it. Then, I mean, more in general, you do develop certain skills. You develop skills as it relates to public speaking. If you become an officer and a master, you definitely develop skills on meeting administration and what that looks like. Um, Not so much for me, although actually early on I did get benevolence tell me by my first suit. Um, I've known Masons who would have been homeless were it not for Freemasonry stepping in and assisting them to pay rent, to pay a mortgage. Um, there's a social safety net aspect of it. You can call on somebody to talk to you if you are feeling alone or lonely. There's a lot of different um, um, there's a lot of different benefits you can get from it, but it's ultimately up to the individual. Good, good, Rich. Well, I'm glad that it benefited your grandfather and your uncle. Um, and not everybody's going to feel connected to the fraternity, which is perfectly fine, by the way. Some people do, some people don't. As things go on, if you feel that you're interested in joining, maybe one day you will. Who knows? And if you don't, that's okay too. I just appreciate you being here. Can you speak of this supreme being that your organization speak of? So, yeah, to be their supreme being when they speak of a supreme being, that's probably who they're thinking of, but it doesn't have to be, right? We have all the different faiths and religions and beliefs represented, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, which is a beautiful thing. I mean, supreme being is kind of an Enlightenment era term. Um, what I'll do is I'll find the section. So there's a section of the Anderson Constitution from 1723, which is one of the oldest Masonic documents, one of what would be considered the old charges. And I'm just seeing if I can find the section. It discusses why we in Freemasonry use the term supreme being. I think, in my opinion, it is the most beautiful section or passage ever written on religious tolerance. So I'm just trying to find that section and why it is that we use the term supreme being and not God, right? The problem is it's a very long section, or it's very long work, and I forget which section it's in, and it's taking forever to load up right now. Oh, here it is. I found it. So it's section 50 concerning God and religion. A Mason is obliged by his tenure to obey the moral law, and if he rightly understands the art, he will never be a stupid atheist nor a religious libertine. But through in ancient times, Masons were charged in every country to be of the religion of that country or nation, whatever it was, yet 'tis now thought more expedient only to oblige them to that religion in which all men agree, leaving their particular opinions to themselves, that is, to be good men and true, or men of honor and honesty, by whatever denominations or purifications they may be distinguished, whereby Masonry becomes the center of union, and the means of conciliating true friendship among persons that must have remained at a perpetual distance, right? So what he's saying is, that is so, or men of honor and honesty. Where is it? So when it says, oblige them to that religion which all men agree, leaving their particular opinions to themselves. The particular opinions would be the supreme being. Every man will have his own particular opinion of a supreme being, of their supreme being, of what that supreme being is, whether it fits into Christian, a Muslim, a Hindu, a Jewish, a Sikh framework, you leave that particular opinion to themselves. You call it a supreme being, so there can be no confusion as to, you're talking about a particular religion. You just say supreme being, and you leave the particular opinion on the supreme being to the brother. And instead, you charge them to be good men and true, or men of honor and honesty, by whatever denominations or perforations they may be distinguished, whereby Masonry becomes the criteria of union and the means of conciliating true friendship among persons that shall have remained at a perpetual distance. I hope that made sense. Go to the grocery store, go grocery shopping. Limp there, but still get there. Money line. It's interesting. One thing I'll just point out is Freemasonry. One thing we are not allowed to do is we're not allowed to discuss politics within the lodge. So whatever my opinions may be of, my political views or ideology, I could not discuss them in a lodge. Since I'm not in a lodge, since I'm here, I would consider my political views to be conservative, but in a classical sense. Certainly within the last election, I voted liberal, and I don't, in Canada, I don't support Trump in the States. If I had to describe my political views in one word, it is that we have a responsibility beyond ourselves. So my political ideology is the individual does not belong wholly to himself. Rather, he is part of a community and has responsibility to both care for himself and others in the community, and to be willing to give up certain rights and freedoms in order to support the common good. Well, no, I mean, because I don't believe in a literal religious framework. I believe in a supreme being, but the nature of that supreme being would not really fit into any particular religious category. It's more spiritual. Um, the Constitution of Freemasons, I know it talks about atheist or regular libertine, but the term supreme being, based on that initial work, has been very liberally defined, as it should be. So I don't fit well into any particular literal religion, but I'm still a Freemason. Um, Attached to the Stone of Triumph, indeed, but not the Stone of Shame. Or no, it was the Stone of Shame first and the Stone of Triumph. So, that is actually incorrect, but is a very common misconception. Freemasonry, when I speak of Freemasonry, I am primarily speaking of the fraternal side of Freemasonry, because that's what I'm, part of. That's what I grew up with. That is what the majority of Freemasonry is. However, there does exist a lot of different women's groups within Freemasonry. There is the Order of Eastern Star, which is for men and women. There's also the Order of Women Freemasons. There's Rainbow, which is for young women. It's a youth group. And then there is co-masonry, which is not recognized by my jurisdiction. So in my lodge, it's exclusively fraternal. The majority of lodges are exclusively fraternal because there's more men than women Freemasons. But you could go, to example, the Order of Women Freemasons and sit in an all-women's lodge if you were a woman and you wanted to join them. And I support them quite a bit. I think one of the biggest mistakes we made in Freemasonry is not being more supportive of the Order of Women Freemasons for a lot of years. Job's Daughters as well, though I don't know if they still exist in Canada. They may. To my knowledge, they don't exist in Ontario. I would have to double check that. I know they exist in some parts of the States. I suppose. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know how deep a application would delve into that to kind of ask somebody, do you have an objective moral framework? You'd be asked if you believe in a supreme being, if you believe the supreme being has made his will known to man, and if you believe the supreme being favors virtue. And there's different ways you can, those questions are phrased, but you have to be able to say yes to those three things. I mean, if you want to call that a objective moral framework, I guess you could, but it has to be within those three answers. There are a ton. Do you mean Order of Women Freemason lodges or just Masonic lodges? There are a ton of lodges in Texas, like Masonic lodges. I've been to a lot of Masonic meetings in Texas. Great state, great people. Kim Cattrall. Oh, I did not know that. And Kim Cattrall is Canadian, right? So maybe the Job's Daughters do still exist in Canada. I'll have to double check that. Well, Stabworthy, it must be because you are a supreme being. I think that's the obvious answer. For women as well, I don't know about for women. I'd have to look into that. Well, there would be Eastern Star. So if you have any family members who are Freemasons, honestly, in 2025, that's not even necessarily a rule anymore. You could, so if you're interested in Freemasonry and there's no Order of Women Freemasons lodges, the other option, and maybe even the better option because it's more recognized by more groups within Freemasonry, would be joining the Order of Eastern Star. Um, well, so Jonathan, Freemasons do a lot of charitable work and charitable giving. We've given to a lot of different charities that help kids. The Masonic Charities Foundation or Masonic Charitable Foundation out of London has done a lot of that as well. You may be thinking, Jonathan, primarily of the Shrine, which is a great group. It's a Masonic order. To be a Shriner, you must first be a Mason. And they're famous for doing, Shrine Hospital for kids and things like that. So, yeah, absolutely. We did make Steve Gutenberg a star. So what can you, like, how can you possibly, like, what can you say other than, if we're making Steve Gutenberg a star, think about everything else we can do for the world, It's pretty incredible. And we're back. Welcome back, Mr. Keeps. Oh, sure. I mean, plenty of rules have changed. Well, like, I don't know about rules, more traditions. I mean, I'll say one rule that's changed actually, and I've talked about this before. For the longest time, and this dates back to when Freemasons were stonemasons, men working with stone. There was this rule that if you were a stonemason, you had to be a whole person. What that meant is you weren't allowed to be missing any limbs. The theory probably being that if you're missing limbs, you would not be able to work well on a job site. So to be a stonemason and to be trained and welcomed into a union, you had to have all of your limbs. That got carried over into Freemasonry for many years. And the rule was if you were an amputee or missing limbs, you couldn't join Freemasonry. Um, then in Ontario, after World War One, a lot of veterans returning from battle wanted to join Masonic lodges, primarily to get that sense of brotherhood. However, a lot of them were missing limbs from the war, and as a result, they were being denied admittance into the lodge. Obviously, there's something perverse about a man who goes to fight for his country, coming back home and not being allowed to join the Masonic lodge because he's missing a limb, lost in service of the country. So in the 20s, that was changed, and they allowed men missing limbs to join Freemasonry. So there you go. Without without that change, I could not be a Freemason because I was born missing my legs. So that's one of them. I mean, it's not so much rules, but a lot of administrative and practices have changed due to technology, sending out summonses via email, communicating with brethren via phone, the types of buildings in which we meet, things like that. I have no idea if that's a song, Stab Worthy, but it sounds like. I mean, you're making me want to visit Albuquerque, New Mexico. I can't get my head shaved for a nickel. It cost me like $30 to get this haircut. It's ridiculous. Somebody give me a nickel haircut. SJSLUM. No, please hit like and subscribe. And as always, this first hour, I just answer questions. I hope I've answered questions well for everybody who maybe has them. Tomorrow, or sorry, today in about 5 minutes, I'll start on the main topics. A couple of things I wanted to talk about. Some interesting economic news, which I think applies to Freemasonry. Not 50, 30. 30. I wouldn't pay 50. That's a bit too much. Though 30 is still too much. You're not wrong, Mr. Keeps. But the problem is, um, he's a cool barber. So I figure I'm helping the economy. And I wouldn't be able to get the fade. Like, that's the thing I like about this haircut is I get the fade. I wouldn't be able to. I should just, if I were to just shave my head completely, I would probably just do it myself. Um, but that's a whole. That's a conversation for another day. I gotta look fancy, all right? I gotta look fancy. They do not. That is a. I mean, in fairness, we don't know because we don't actually know for sure who put up the Georgia Guidestones, to my knowledge. But I've never heard any definitive. I never heard any definitive. Oh, shave my back. Well, they would shave my head for a nickel. If they're going to, I got more back than head. Make your jokes as you will. Um, I don't think we know for sure who put up the Georgia Guidestones. So maybe it was a Mason who did it. I don't know. But I've never heard any evidence, at least anything I find remotely convincing that the Georgia Guidestones were put up by Freemasons. The only connection I could make is it's stones, right? And obviously, stone is an important Masonic kind of symbol. But beyond that, I got nothing. What can you say about Prince Hall Freemasonry? Well, I mean, so it's not that it was always like officially desegregated. The problem is unofficially, human beings are human beings. They have um, their prejudices and their prejudices and their cruelties, and unfortunately, whatever Freemasonry should be, right? People are going to be what people are going to be, and sometimes that's not the best version of themselves. And so, Prince Hall Freemasonry. What happened is obviously Prince Hall was a black man, tried to join a Masonic lodge in Boston, was denied admittance because of his race. But even then, Freemasonry was desegregated because what Prince Hall did at first is he joined a lodge that was chartered out of Ireland, and he was made a member in that lodge in 1775 or 1776. I forget which. It was an Irish lodge. And then through Ireland, he created African Lodge, number one, I believe it was, under the auspices of the Grand Lodge of England. And that was a sort of Prince Hall Freemasonry, because unfortunately, again, whatever the official reason, whatever it should officially be, many black men experienced prejudice and were excluded from joining Masonic lodges across America. Not every city or town had lodges from other jurisdictions, like lodges from Ireland, lodges from England. And so as a consequence, um, he started Prince Hall as a way to allow black men, to ensure black men could join Freemasonry and could also join with other men who may be suffering the same kind of prejudices and discrimination. I think we have fully embraced diversity. I mean, when I say fully, again, Masons are Masons. Masons are human. Um, there are racist Freemasons. I wish there weren't, but there are. It's just is what it is. But I think if people are following the Masonic philosophies properly, they will they will understand that they need to view every single brother, whether black, white, Asian, European, indigenous, South American, whatever it is, they need to view every Mason, whatever his race, his religion, his politics, his language, his age. He is a brother. And I think that the best parts of Masonry affirms that, teaches us that. And I think by and large, Freemasonry has embraced that. I've said this story before, but when I was joining Freemasonry, one of the things that stuck out to me very much was all the different accents that I heard during my initiation. I heard accents from the Philippines, accents from England, accents from Africa, accents from South America, uh, or sorry, not South America, the southern parts of America, like Texas. Um, and it just showed me how diverse Freemasonry is, and I think that's one of its strengths. The other thing I will say, Richard, is when you talk about, Prince Hall, I have in some way almost mixed feelings about it in the sense that obviously I hate, as everybody should, I hate racism and prejudice against anybody. So I hate the fact that Prince Hall formed as a response to the racist attitudes of, some Masons in Boston at the time. Having said that, I love the fact that Prince Hall Freemasonry is a part of my Masonic family. They develop their own rituals and ceremonies, which are beautiful. They have their own history, which is incredible. They're a worldwide organization. So it's like out of something bad came something wonderful. And how you square those two things, I have no clue. Um, I have not, because my lips are great, Steffelson. Hello, Anad. Thank you for being here. I hope you like what I've been saying so far, Dad. Yes, I mean, within Freemasonry, I think really to be a Freemason is to be a lifelong learner. And we're encouraged every step of the way to be a lifelong learner, to learn about the liberal arts and sciences. One thing I've tried to do often on this stream and on this channel is post stories related to science and advancing kind of scientific understandings. So I've done interviews about the Euclid space mission, um, and NASA, history, ancient Egypt. Uh, the more you know, the more you learn, the better you will be within society. The more useful you'll be within society. I am well, Anad. How are you? Never read it. What's it about? Masonic. What is Shadows of Light about? It is. Yes, I got my dad on the stream with me. What can you tell me about Masonry? What do you guys do? Investigating. Okay, cool. Well, so Freemasonry, it's a civic group. It's a civic organization. You can think about it generally as a fraternity, right? So it's a social club, a social group. Um, a lot of people have different answers as to what we do. Ultimately, what we do is the same thing any club or group does. We, fulfill that desire people have to belong to something greater than themselves. We um, gather usually once or twice a month. We oftentimes support one another and our community. So if a brother is sick or his family is sick, we may help them out with some financial assistance. We may bring them food, visit them in the hospital, organize hospital trips. We'll hold banquets, celebrations, special events, public speaking or speaking within the lodge. And then we have our ceremonial nights where we bring new Masons into the fold. Um, what I always say is ultimately what Freemasonry is the belief that the world can be made better through the application of brotherly love, relief, and truth. But that's me. Everybody gets their own kind of view on it. Interesting. I'm one of those guys. I've never really been freaked out about bogus, clandestine Freemasonry as much as others are. I kind of am playing a stand in the sandbox. So long as you're not telling people that you're recognized, Social group or club is a good way to look at it. So long as you're telling people you're not recognized, I don't have any knock with you creating your own group. Just don't tell people that you are recognized Freemasonry. I do not. I was never really a lawyer, to be honest. I went through law school, graduated, but I worked primarily as a. Um, I worked primarily as a in a probation office and then in a jail. So, oh, 755. You're way ahead of me. I'm simply 18 and you're all the way at 755. I got to know what you're doing. How you managed to make it up there so quickly. I don't think I can make it that far. I don't think I'd want to. The amount of dinners I'd have to go to, I'd have to go to like 7 dinners a day. We're gonna finish this off in 1 second, then I'll start talking about my main subject today. But I did want to give it a couple minutes just to see if anybody else jumps on. Is it? It is. I think it's being sarcastic. Really, it's 3 degrees. SJ Slum. That's what matters. The entered apprentice, fellow craft, master mason. If you're a master mason, you're at the highest level of Freemasonry that you can be at. That's not to say there aren't additional rites, Scottish Rite and York Rite. Um, Scottish Rite and York Rite are appendant bodies. They have their own degree structures. Scottish Rite goes up to 33rd, but it's not as though if you're a 33rd degree Mason, you're like 11 times better than a 3rd degree Mason. You get too full. You get too full. Hello, Shaki. Thank you for being here. Some do, some don't. I don't. Most Masons I know will drink alcohol. Different jurisdictions have different rules about alcohol in the building. Um, so, for example, for a long time in Texas, you were not allowed to have any alcohol in the Masonic building. That's changed. Um, there's just different rules and regulations surrounding it. Interestingly enough, in Ontario, if you're going to serve alcohol, you need to have a smart serve designation, which I do have, just in case anybody's serving alcohol and they need assistance in a building. I know I can help them, and I'm properly, what's the word I'm looking for? Properly designated, properly trained, and protected. So if anything does happen, we can at least show that we do have the proper training and knew what to do. Absolutely. I hope he does follow me on X. Tell everybody follow me on X. Be much appreciated. Oh yeah, I mean I tend to just focus on masonry here in North America. I mean Memphis Mizraim, I think goes up to 99. However, it's not recognized anywhere in North America to my knowledge. It's recognized primarily in Europe. But yeah, I shouldn't forget about the Memphis Cats. Where are you from? Canada. Born and raised in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Presently live in Windsor, Ontario. And I love Canada. Always said it, greatest country in the world. Sure. I mean, I think it's incredibly tragic what's happened to the Palestinian people. Um, so yeah. Uh, yes, and on X, I mean, I have my Square and Compass channel. Honestly, it's funny. I can't get into my Square and Compass channel on X. I don't know why, but it's not ever letting me go on there. So all that posts on there is my email blasts. So he can follow me on my personal X channel as well, at Cameron Adamso 16. So it's at CameronAdamso 16. Mike, I am a traveling man. You even got the word traveler tattooed right there. Not that that means anything. You should never assume just because someone has Masonic tattoos they're a Mason, but I am a Mason. Um, what's going on, Christopher? Good to see you here. Well, it's all relative, right? So what is popular versus isn't, and how you define it, like from numbers perspective. The Philippines, it's incredibly popular. Cuba, it's growing. South America, it's growing. Um, I'd say it's most popular within the Philippines. I do not. I don't know. I don't know what that is, but I would never get. I hope I would never get a Nazi tattoo, um, because I do not like Nazis. I do not. Joe Rogan is not a Mason, at least to my knowledge. I've never seen any evidence that he is. Um, so I don't believe he is. But he's had a couple Masons on his channel. Um, Randall Carlson, I think, most famously. Christopher, cut that stuff out. Um, I mean, no people suck, right? You can say individuals of any different, group suck, but the people don't. Um, some maybe, but I think most of them, based on what I've seen, seem like just decent people trying to live their lives and going through an incredibly tragic time. I mean, come on, Christopher, cut it out. Don't be that guy. Be kind. I mean, I also have no issue with Israel, the people of Israel. I'm actually a member of a lodge in Israel. I'm a member of Lodge Holy Land number 50 out of Tel Aviv, and proud of it. How do you feel about the conspiracy that Masons? I mean, you grow to accept these conspiracies are just part of the culture. There's not a lot you can do. You certainly should never get upset or angry about them, because what's the point? Sometimes the people who spread conspiracy, they want you to get angry or upset. Um, right? It's kind of why they spread them in the first place. Sometimes it's because they genuinely believe it. Oftentimes it's because they want to get a rise out of you. It's one of those things where I always point out the Illuminati started about 50 years after Freemasonry by an ex-Freemason, and really didn't last long. Kind of died out by, I think, the early 19th century, if I recall correctly. So it didn't do much. Was it 14? Let me get the number again. Thank you, Christopher. That's very kind of you. Because I think there's a couple in there that are questionable. 15, yeah. I thought it was a little bit more than what you thought. I cannot sing anything, 6, 7. You can hit the like and subscribe button. Um, the presidents who were Freemasons: George Washington, James Monroe, Andrew Jackson, James K. Polk, James Buchanan, Andrew Johnson, James Garfield, William McKinley, Theodore Roosevelt, one of my favorites, William H. Taft, made a Mason on site. Um, Warren G. Harding, Franklin D. Roosevelt, another one of my favorite presidents. Truman LBJ, another of my favorites. Gerald Ford, um, who was the last confirmed Masonic president. Joe Biden was declared a Master Mason on site. Ronald Reagan was made an honorary Freemason, and Bill Clinton was DMOLE, which is a Masonic youth group. I cannot 6, 7, no matter how many times you ask. We do not perform sacrifices. SJ Slum, unless you count sacrificing of our time, which, believe me, I've sacrificed a lot of my time to Freemasonry. I'm sure I'll sacrifice much more of it in the future. So we sacrifice our time to Freemasonry. We don't sacrifice necessarily anything else. And I mean, $100 a year to $200 a year in dues. We do have our rituals or our ceremonies, but those perform the same purpose as anytime we support Freemasonry, right? Masonic rituals perform the same function as any other ritual, which is to create bonds of brotherhood through shared experiences. Um, how old were you got your first tattoo? It was 7 years ago, I think it was. So 35, thereabouts. Well, it depends, Michael, more at least for me, the spam and the troll is. As a general rule, um, yes, because well, it depends what they're trolling, what they're spamming. If they're just being silly and annoying, but not saying anything that's like racist, sexist, or advocating for harming anything or anyone, then you'll always get some benefit from them being in the chat, because if they're chatting and they're engaging, YouTube notices it and sends it out to more people, right? What YouTube ultimately studies and supports is engagement. It's not even views, right? 100 people on a channel, all of them chatting frequently, is going to do better over time than a channel which has 1,000 viewers and 5 people chatting, right? That's one of the ways they combat um, bots, right? Is you can artificially increase a view count through bots, but it's harder to do so through engagement. So it doesn't hurt anything. And also, I think sometimes people come on thinking they're going to troll and thinking they're going to upset you. And if you discuss it with them and talk to them, sometimes you can start to get them to reevaluate their opinions on Freemasonry, or at least reevaluate their opinions on spamming and trolling. Like Nathan, I don't know what it even means to not give a spider's ass. I did not know you could give a spider's ass. No one's ever given me a spider's ass before, so I have no clue what that would mean. I've never also been given a lizard man's ass before, Nathan Mays. So I did want to bring up a couple points. As always, the first hour I just talk about whatever. I wait to see who's in the chat. The second hour I have more specific topics. The first thing I wanted to mention, and this is primarily relevant to Canadian Freemasons, especially ones that are engaged with events for their Masonic lodges or for their Masonic buildings. However, I hope that this will give some ideas to. It was one of the chat comments. You didn't see it, Mr. Keeps, but somebody put in the chat. It got blocked by YouTube. I don't give a lizard man's ass, and I was like, okay. The 2025 Canadian budget passed from Prime Minister Mark Carney. I think it passed I think it passed by 3 votes. Didn't Nathan Mays said it. Didn't shock me that it passed. I'm somewhat ambivalent towards the budget. Generally speaking, I guess I'm positive of it. I'm certainly positive towards it because I don't want another election. And I think most people don't. I don't really have any strong opinions of it, except the Canadian budget does have funding set aside to support community events held by different community groups. It has funding set aside specifically for programs and for developing programs and services that target elderly people, senior citizens. I don't think it's any secret that within Freemasonry, our demographic is growing older. We have a lot of members who are older, but they're in an interesting age, interesting point in their life. They're older, they're seniors, they may even be widowed, but they are not living in an old age home. They're still living independently. And that does, in some ways, put them at risk of isolation, being alone. Um, but in some cases, those older generation, those senior citizens who are living alone, who may be widowed, but not living in a care home, they may still be Freemasons. I know many Freemasons who are in that exact boat. They're in their 60s, 70s, 80s, living independently, living on their own, but still, needing some supports from the community. There's now funding. So if you're a Masonic Lodge and you want to hold a special event, there might be funding to do so if you target it toward the senior members of your lodge, right? You could bring out yoga instruction or some type of low impact exercise for your elderly members and get funding to advertise it, funding to pay for people to do it. Maybe once a month, your Masonic building holds a yoga night for your elderly membership and their families, or holds a book club for your senior members, right? Whatever it might be, but there is funding for that. There's also funding for supporting art and heritage. And my building, the Windsor Masonic Temple, actually took advantage of that funding for a lot of work done on the building, which tied into our 100th anniversary. Middle-aged dudes, not just white, all different races, religions, creeds, etc., etc. Let me see actually if I can find I know I wrote it down, but let me see if I can find the exact info and read out the exact provisions therein. So the budget has passed. Even if you don't like it, if you're a Mason, whether you like it or not, consider maybe taking advantage of some of the provisions therein to support your Masonic Lodge and your Masonic building. Again, if let's say your Masonic Lodge is having 100th anniversary, and you want to hold a big celebration, maybe you want to do a year of celebrations. Might it be worth applying for some funding? Maybe, Nathan. I don't know. I'm not as convinced of that. Because I was saying I worked in the office of the Prime Minister in 2009. At the time, Stephen Harper brought in a $55 billion, a budget with a $55 billion deficit, which was a record at the time. Didn't seem to affect people's taxes or anything to that extent. Still 5%, GST stayed at 5%. So we shall see. All right, so here's what I said before. If we've said it once, we've said it 100 times. We cannot separate the economic, social, political situation in a country from the condition of Freemasonry in that same country. The 2025 federal budget unveiled by the Canadian Finance Minister included many proposals for protecting Canadian culture, values, and identity. That includes possible funding for programs and services of which Freemasons could apply. These include empowering seniors in their communities. Far too many of our seniors face isolation in their retirement years, and some experience ageism, poor health, reduced mobility, poverty, and even abuse. Canada's new government is helping address this by empowering seniors to thrive in their communities through the New Horizons Seniors Program. The New Horizons for Seniors Program, the current budget of $70 million, supports projects that improve the quality of life for seniors and promotes their full participation in Canadian society. The program offers up to $25,000 to support local projects, such as new fitness equipment for senior centers, and $5 million to support projects that are national in scope and can benefit seniors across the country. So you've got $25,000 available to support a local project to help seniors. So again, maybe you want to have um, um, a seniors book club in your Masonic building for your older members and their families. Maybe you can apply $25,000 to build a special section in your building that's like a part library, part reading center. Um, Connecting Canadians through cultural experiences and community celebrations. Culture is experienced locally in our towns, neighborhoods, and public spaces. Investments will help bring Canadians together at festivals, national monuments of celebration, and community-driven cultural events across the country. Budget 2025 proposes to provide targeted support to strengthen participation, community identity, and cultural access for Canadians in every region, including 21 million over 3 years starting in 2026 to Canadian Heritage for the Building Communities Through Arts and Heritage program to support local festivals, community anniversaries, and community-initiated capital projects. We've, in Freemasonry, taken advantage of Canadian Heritage for the Building Communities Through Arts and Heritage program before. I'm happy it still exists. If you're a Masonic building and lodge, and you're celebrating an anniversary, and you can tie that anniversary into support for the arts, there's money available to help you. 46.5 million over 3 years to Canadian Heritage for the Canada Arts Presentation Fund, 20 million over 4 years to Canadian Heritage for the Celebration and Commemoration Program to support Canada Day celebrations. If you're a Freemason and you want to do something to celebrate Canada Day, there's funding to help you do that. Join SJ Slum. You have to join. Right. As they note, funding to Canadian Heritage and Environment and Climate Change Canada for festivals and community-driven cultural events across the country. This measure would benefit all Canadians by encouraging people to attend festivals and other local cultural events, which helps to strengthen participation, community identity, and expand cultural access for Canadians. Canadian artists, cultural workers, volunteers, and event organizers who participate in community events and celebrations would also benefit by providing employment opportunities. I've said it a million times. Freemasons need to be relevant to their communities. That includes by supporting our communities and supporting the local artists therein. Cowboy Dan, I'm not sure necessarily to what you're saying. If you do have cancer, then I'm very, very sorry that you have cancer. And it sounds to me like you're ready to fight. It says you will crush your enemies. I don't know if you mean like metaphorical enemies, as in the cancer is your enemy. But I think good for you for having that attitude. My mom had cancer. She passed away from it. It's an absolutely hellacious thing I would not wish on my worst enemy. And I hope that you are okay and that you have a support system. Well, I'm not a fan of what you're saying there, Cowboy Dan. I hope that you find some people to talk to. I hope that you find some people to support you. I know how hard it is. Like I said, I don't know how hard it is to have cancer myself. I've never had it, but I've seen those who've had it. It seems hellacious, and it seems like an incredibly if you have cancer and you're fighting it, then that's a lot of strength. I don't know what nano aluminum particles are. If you're talking about chemtrails, then I think, sorry, cowboy, but that's baloney. I don't believe in chemtrails or anything like that. I don't know where you're from, but I hope that, if you're on Canada, thank heavens, you have access to our healthcare system. And I hope that you take advantage of it, get your healthcare that you need to fight the cancer. And also, I hope that you have a support system to talk to. We'll see, Nathan. It's a bit too early to say that. We'll see. Um, well, SJ Slum just joined. But the true secret of Freemasonry isn't a secret at all. The true secret of Freemasonry is we're trying to create or build a better world through the application of brotherly love, belief, or truth. I mean, I think they all have decent healthcare. I mean, again, I can only speak for myself and my own experiences. I've always been very grateful for the healthcare system in Canada, which has treated me very well. I was born missing my legs and I have some other chronic conditions. And I've been very lucky with the healthcare system and the way it's treated me and my family. And when my mom had cancer, um, I was very impressed with the way the doctors and nurses and staff treated her. At the end of the day, she passed away from it. That happens. There's only so much that you can do. The idea that, you expect the doctor to fix everything is silly. That's not how life works. That's not how life should work. But you can expect the doctors and nurses to try their best, which I feel that they did. Um, well, I mean, I've used the healthcare primarily in Canada, in Manitoba and Ontario, and I've been impressed with them both. I went to a clinic once in Alberta like decades ago, if I recall correctly, but I don't remember much about it. So, yes, healthcare is provincially administered, though the feds do get a pretty big say in what happens through transfer payments. Um, oof, you saying that, Dad, you've got me clenching when I hear the word colonoscopy. Do I know why? I mean, I don't know. I don't think there was any reason for it. I think it's just sometimes it happens. I don't know if there's any maybe genetics. I don't think there's any specific reason they cited. Um, but yeah, those things. Sometimes those things happen. We got a guy in the chat. You can see him, but his name is Igor the Destroyer. I know a guy called Igor, so maybe you're him. So, anyways, I did want to mention that first and foremost in this stream, the Canadian budget 2025 did pass. If you are a Mason in Canada, especially if you're involved in organizing any Masonic events, or if you're involved in anything related to your Masonic building and you're looking for funding on a national level to help support your efforts and your work, check out Canada Budget 2025. Check out those funding opportunities. Consider applying. What do you have to lose, right? Um, I'm sorry to hear that, Nathan. I'm sorry to hear A, that the hospital is overrun, B, that your mom died. I mean, whether it's of cancer or anything, losing your mom sucks. So I'm really sorry that you lost her. It happens, it's the order of things, right? But still sucks. Which book did you read? Well, I'm very happy to have to avoid that. So let's keep my fingers crossed. I never need a colonoscopy. That's my that's my goal. As a U.S. citizen, I don't get me wrong. The U.S. has a lot of great things as well, but I will take our healthcare system over the U.S. healthcare system. I'm sure you do, Jonathan. I miss my mom every day. Also, I will say, as we've kind of started talking about health. Um, One thing to keep in mind about Freemasonry is Freemasonry does a lot to protect people's health and well-being. There was a Surgeon General's report from the States in 2023 that described loneliness and isolation as a pandemic. That loneliness had equally as actually worse health outcomes for people than smoking or drinking. Not saying you shouldn't smoke or drink, just saying, not saying you should smoke or drink, just saying if you're looking at health risks, being alone and isolated was reported as having, just as extreme health consequences as those things. Even bad diet. If you're a Freemason, you're a lot of things. You might be crazy, but you're not alone. You're not isolated. And there was also a study that showed after you have a um, let's say somebody has a heart attack, a stroke, or some other major medical issue. If no one visits them in the hospital during their recovery, they're 2.5 more times likely to, you're 2.5 times more likely to have a secondary health issue or even die in recovery than those people who got those people who got visitors. So just a reminder to also tell the Masons watching this, if you know of any brothers who ended up in a hospital, who are getting treatment, whatever it might be, take the time to go see them. Ask them how they're doing. Go visit them in hospital. You might literally be saving their lives. Their lives. Gamer Adraboy, I can do a shout out to Gamer Adraboy. Can you hit the like and subscribe button? Yeah, if you don't have visitors, I guess. Like for whatever reason, whether you would use that term or not, I think you could. I do think if you suffer some type of incident like a heart attack or stroke, they call it a cardiovascular event, and you don't get any visitors, you're 2.5 times more likely to die. Um, Thank you, gamer. I mean, I don't disagree with you, Nathan. There is a real waiting list problem. A lot of people have pointed this out. The Canadian, at least in my experience, and this is my experience, this is me, the Canadian healthcare system is wonderful if you need assistance right away. Like it sounds like a weird thing, but I'm really happy knowing that if I get hit by a car, knock on wood, I never do, I will end up in the hospital. They'll treat me. They'll try to, help me recover, and they're not going to charge me anything for the accident, nor will I have to pay any deductibles through insurance. I'm happy knowing that. That gives me peace of mind. I'm not saying I'm jumping in front of cars. I'm not foolish, but it gives me peace of mind to know if I need help right away, I'll be okay. It also gives me peace of mind to know that for my chronic medical conditions, like having no legs, but that I'm not in any pain for, like it doesn't hurt to exist, right? It's just something I need to deal with in different ways. It makes me happy to know that, I go to my doctors every year. I get my blood tested. I get my legs checked out. I don't have to pay for anything. I have the peace of mind of that. The biggest issue within the Canadian healthcare system is those people who are in chronic pain, who need surgery, but are at a stage where the pain is not so bad that it's debilitating or they can't exist, but it's bad enough that it impacts their happiness and their quality of life. Like I know one person who has to wait, I think it's 2.5, 3 years for a knee surgery, whereas in the States, he was told he could get it within like 3 months or something like that. And that is a big problem in Canada, right? Our biggest problem is the waiting list time. But for me personally, it's a trade-off. I'm willing to accept that trade-off because I know I'm never going to have to worry about, for example, bankruptcy due to medical debt, or in the midst of an emergency, thinking about how I'm going to pay for the treatment when I get out of it. A really good example, I'm in professional wrestling, and I'll never forget, I was in the States. I prefer the wheelchair to prosthetic legs. I was in the States, I was at this professional wrestling show, and this professional wrestler, he dislocated his shoulder during a match, and he dislocated it badly. Like it was a bad, bad dislocation. It was gross to look at. And they tried to pop it back in place, but it just wasn't going. It just wasn't going in. Um, they thought it might have actually been like worse than just a dislocation. They thought it actually might have been some torn ligaments. And anyways, they were telling him like, go to the hospital. You need to get this X-rayed. And he was going like, no, I'm not going to go to the hospital. Um, I can't. I don't have the money. And me being from Canada and not thinking properly, I just said, I assumed he meant he didn't have the money for the taxi. So I was like, dude, I'll pay for a taxi for you to go to the hospital. And he said, no, I can't afford the deductible um, for my insurance because he knew the deductible wouldn't cover the cost. So he ended up just not going to the doctor's office. They popped it back in place, but whether there's torn ligaments in there or who knows what, I guess he never got it checked out. Um, right? I've had plenty of injuries, plenty of times I've had to go to the hospital. Never once did I think, can I pay for this out of pocket? Obviously, my taxes go to pay for it, so be it. I'm much more comfortable with my taxes paying for something than potentially thousands of dollars out on either premiums or deductibles, right? And I'm willing to, uh, understand that in some cases my taxes will pay for other people to get service. I can live with that. It does me no possible benefit in the world to, see a person on the street who can't afford healthcare and just say to him, well, I hope you don't get healthcare because it doesn't affect me. Because if he's sick, sooner or later, that's going to affect me. Um, right? I've never understood the beggar be thy neighbor approach to life. Um, I mean, the argument of affordable healthcare. I mean, I don't live in the States. From what I've seen, it does not seem to me, based on what I've seen and the American brethren I know, that healthcare in the States is particularly affordable, especially now with the Obama subsidies or the Obamacare subsidies expiring. I think somebody did a post that like the average subsidy is going up by $2,000 a month with the so I don't know. It does not look particularly affordable to me at the moment. Um, I mean, I know that obviously I had a discussion actually with a Mason about this. He was a fan of the American healthcare system. He said, look, if you, let's say you don't have insurance and you're like homeless and poor or something, you get hit by a car. He said you'll still get treated. I said, what kind of treatment? He said, well, the bare minimum, then kick you back out. That does not seem like a healthy system. To give somebody the bare minimum of treatment and kick them out, you're just ensuring they'll come back for another issue down the road, you know? I'd rather pay a bit more in taxes, but know that that homeless person is getting a decent level of care that maybe sets them up on some type of future path to a better life. Um, Again, I guess maybe, Nathan, it just depends on your experience. I've always found with me and my family, what I've seen, I would describe as good. Um, I don't know about great. I mean, I don't know necessarily how you judge these things. I've never felt that my doctor either A, didn't care for me, B, didn't have the time for me, or C, didn't have my best interests at heart. And that's same with the doctors and nurses that cared for my mom and cared for my dad. So, I mean, could it be better? Of course. Like I said, the biggest issue seems to me to be wait lists. That seems a huge issue. Again, like I said, I know somebody who said he's got about 2.5 year wait to get a knee surgery in Canada, and I guess he said he could get it in the States in like 3 months. So there's pluses and minuses to every healthcare system. Um, um, can you explain? Well, but not, I mean, not everybody pays for it themselves, though, and I'm okay with that, right? Because I'd rather everybody get healthcare treatment, even if some people can't afford to pay taxes. I'll subsidize people because I've been subsidized in the past, right? When I, you know, wasn't paying anything in taxes, was getting money back. I still got healthcare, especially when I was a student going through school. Um, my political ideology is basically that no person belongs wholly to himself or herself. Rather, we belong in part to the community. We have a responsibility to be willing to sacrifice some of our freedoms and sacrifice some of our comforts so the community can prosper and grow. I do not belong solely to myself. I belong to a certain extent to the Fat Muppet, and the Fat Muppet belongs on a certain to a certain extent to me. That's why, for example, it's not okay. This is my personal ideology. It's not okay for me to do a bunch of drugs and risk my health. Because if I risk my health, I'm not just letting myself down, I'm letting my community down. That doesn't mean that the person doing the drugs isn't deserving of health care. They absolutely are, and we should try to treat them to make them better. But for me personally, when I'm thinking about doing something, I always try to think not just the decisions I'm making, but the fact that if I make a not so good decision, it could affect other people. Um, oh, I can imagine. Yeah, the chats add a lot to it. So, for example, the reason I'm always telling people that they should exercise is not just because it's good for you as an individual, but if you're exercising and you're healthy, you're less likely to need medical interventions. If you're less likely to need medical interventions, that means that you're saving the medical staff and time and resources for others who might need it more. I mean, when Nathan points out the idea of hospitals being understaffed, um, I do think part of that is we need to hire more doctors, maybe even I know this is an anathema, but maybe even consider raising taxes to spend on hospitals. However, people do need to take a certain responsibility in not doing things that cause them to need to be in the hospital. Sometimes it can't be helped. Accidents happen, genetics happen. Um, it is what it is, but we should encourage as much as we can, people not to smoke, people to get vaccinated, people to exercise, healthy diets, do more with prevention. And by doing more with prevention, we can hopefully ease up the burden on the healthcare system. Um, yes, I belong in part to the Fat Muppet. I do. That's going to be my next tattoo. I'm getting, um, I'm getting a tattoo with some of my buddies on December 20th. That's going to be my next tattoo. I belong in part to the Fat Muppet, and the Fat Muppet belongs in part to me. Um, I cannot do puppets. I was talking about the Fat Muppet. It's not even. Oh, I'm sorry you suffered a stroke. That sucks. Well, what I would say is when I say people should exercise, and I do believe people should exercise, you should exercise always in alignment with your doctor's instructions. I think it is possible to overexert yourself, right? Certainly, I don't expect somebody, in their 90s with bad knees to be running marathons or anything like that. But I do think, we belong in part to each other, and that means part of that is we should be exercising. Welcome, worshipful brother Andy. I don't know if you saw, but premiere episode, the premiere page for your episode is up. Um, November 23rd, it will be released. If you want to go to the premiere page and leave a comment, please feel free. Um, Although, in fairness, being master of the lodge can be pretty stressful. So maybe that's why you suffered the stroke. Who knows? How long have you been on the stream for, the dad slash Andy? And to everybody watching this, it's not too late to please hit the like and subscribe button. It's interesting, Nathan. I was thinking a lot about, because I mean, I am naturally and traditionally the Fat Muppet. Should I become it? That is completely up to you, the Fat Muppet. If you find it interesting, then by all means, um, you should. You should at least don't even think about it in terms of joining or becoming a Freemason. For now, just think about approaching the lodge and talking to them and expressing an interest and take it from there. You don't need to think about it in terms of literally being a Freemason, right? At the start or becoming one, just approach them, talk to them. Well, you don't decide here. You don't decide on this stream, right? That's not the best way to approach it. The way you decide is you approach the Masonic Lodge that's in your area, and you talk to them. You get to know them. You get to know the brothers that you'll be spending the majority of your Masonic career with. You talk to them about maybe what it is that you find interesting about Freemasonry, and you talk to them about what it is maybe that concerns you about Freemasonry, your hopes for Freemasonry, etc., etc. Right? You do all of that stuff, and you decide from there. But you don't decide now, and you don't decide with my stream. You decide by talking to the Masons in your area. That's how you decide if you want to join. Well, if that's what they think, then they're the losers. And don't worry about it. I mean, they didn't think I was a loser, and I'm a loser. And if they didn't think that about me, you'll be fine, I'm sure. I am from France. My goal is twofold. My goal, first and foremost, is to promote the ways Freemasonry was and is relevant to the communities in which it's located. And my second goal is to turn my passion for Freemasonry into a profession. By talking about and focusing on Freemasonry, I hope to earn a living. I'm working on it, slowly but surely. Thank you for the revenues, by the way, to everybody who's done so. Please consider a super chat of even 99 cents and hit that like and subscribe button. Okay, Callus Fitness, or OTAC Callus Fitness. Do you have any thoughts on Freemasonry? Positive, negative, or neutral? I'd love to hear them. Here's a philosophical thought. If what I believe is influenced by another, is what I believe truly mine? Yes. I would say yes, because no individual is able to, like, no individual starts from a truly blank table. Every thought we have has been in some way, shape, or form influenced by the thoughts or ideas of another. That's one of the reasons why I tend to be dismissive of concerns regarding AI. People will say, well, artificial intelligence doesn't have original thoughts. It just takes from the thoughts of others and repackages them. To me, it's like, what do we do as humans? We do the exact same thing, right? I mean, how many Batman movies? How many sequels, prequels, requels, franchises? I mean, at the end of the day, human nature, we're doing the same thing AI is doing. We're taking from our environment, taking from the thoughts of others, repackaging it through our hardware up here and our software up here, and then regurgitating it either on YouTube or on Medium or anywhere else. That is true. So yeah, the Fat Muppet. What I would say is, if you're interested in joining or becoming a Freemason, or just interested in Freemasonry, and you can't figure out if you want to join or not, the best way to decide is talk to some brethren at the local lodge level. I do, once again, hope everybody is doing well. By the way, I was curious, because the dad, you'll be in beautiful old London soon as well. Did you apply for, like, how did you find the ETA process? Did you have to apply for one, the electronic travel authorization? Last time I was in England was about 20 years ago. I just discovered, and they didn't have it then. They have it now, and I got mine. I'm looking forward to being there. But I thought it was really interesting, very different setup than what was there in the past. it was neat because my passport also has that chip in it, which means my phone scans it and sends the info right to United Kingdom, which I thought was really cool. Um, but yeah, I found that fascinating. I've been lucky with all my travels. All of these apps that I keep having to sign up for as part of my travels, so far, so good. I mean, when I went to Rio de Janeiro, I had to sign up to get a visa through an app for Brazil, the ETA thing, the government app to get my passport. Um, Mine is was emailed to me. Um, yeah, but um, uh, it's emailed to me, but it's attached to the passport number. So they said I don't need to even print out a copy of it. I can just it's just attached to my passport number. Anyways, I found it not hard at all. I got my ETA super quick too. Super Orwellian in the UK. Well, question. You are here because the algorithm, the all-knowing algorithm LP sent you here. Please hit like and subscribe. And maybe you have some ideas about Freemasonry. Yeah, one thing I talked about um, is, to be a Mason and a citizen, what that means. One thing that we as Freemasons are taught is that we are to be not only good citizens in our home country, but to be respectful of the laws and customs of the countries to which we travel. That dates as far back as our stonemasonry days. And a big part of that, I think, is being respectful of the admission requirements, whether you need a visa, an ETA, vaccinations, getting vaccinated, all that jazz. Um, can't even say the word. Well, I say COVID because it's COVID. I don't say your word. You sound like a bit of a conspiracy theorist question. Do you know any conspiracy? Well, the problem I have with conspiracy theories is what I've found is oftentimes conspiracy theorists will, um, they'll express their theories so incredibly broadly that you can interpret them in almost any way you want. So they're almost like the Oracle of Delphi, which was a famous oracle in ancient times, which people would go to get, advice on how to proceed. But the advice that the oracle would give would be so ambiguous, it could be interpreted in multiple different ways, and she could never be wrong. Um, Mr. Beast, Mr. R. Beast, talking about Freemasonry. MRR Beast, please hit like and subscribe. I do not know to what you're referring with 67, but hello. I'm down with everything but the Saturn worship. We don't worship Saturn. All right. I did mention before, again, the Canadian budget passed. There's funding in there for events and celebrations and anniversaries. We within Freemasonry should consider taking advantage of those. Yes, it did, the dad. But that's the thing. So Freemason symbolism is not everywhere in pop culture because the number of different videos I've seen claiming Freemasonry symbolism does exist within pop culture. You often see the square and compasses in movies. Sometimes characters will wear a ring and not even reference it. They'll just have it on. My favorite example of that is the movie Prisoners, starring Jake Gyllenhaal. Right, Jake Gyllenhaal's character, the detective Loki, famously wears a Masonic ring, square and compass ring, but he never references it. It's never brought up. We have no idea if he is or isn't a Freemason. He just wears the ring. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, the villain wears a ring. But I've seen a lot of people claim Masonic symbolism that isn't Masonic symbolism. Like, I saw this one post that said every time somebody has their hand over their eye, that's a Masonic symbol, which it's not. Or every time somebody does this symbol, it's a Masonic symbol, which it's not. Assassin's Creed has a ton of Masonic symbolism in it, especially the third one. But I think a lot of times the reason why we have that Masonic symbolism is because it's a easy shorthand way to ascribe some background color or some interesting quirks. It's like putting a tattoo on a character. Even if you don't talk about the tattoo, it just gives something interesting visually to look at and see, and adds kind of an air of mystery to the character. Um, 33rd isn't that secret, I promise you. Um, I have Vitoldus, I have no idea what you're talking about. Well, I hope LP you don't get bad vibes from me. I try to be a good dude. I'm not going to say I always succeed. I probably honestly fail in my efforts as much as I succeed, but I try to be a good person. And I'm sorry that you had some not so good run-ins with Masons in the past. Um, I am an 18th degree Scottish Rite Mason. I'm not even going to confirm question that there is a handshake. You got to join. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. What you're referring to when you talk about handshakes and stuff is modes of recognition. Um, right now, I try to. Right now, when I talk about the one eye, sometimes people think that's referring to the all-seeing eye or the eye of providence, which it's not even a uniquely Masonic symbol. The eye of providence has been a symbol in a ton of different orders and organizations throughout history. But covering an eye, that doesn't mean anything. That's just maybe they're rubbing their eye, right? Well, also keep in mind, Cowboy Dan, we're all dipping from the same well. Like one thing you need to remember is Freemasonry, it's an organization invented by humans. So when we're developing rituals and symbolism, we're developing it based on common experiences, right? We're using Christian symbolism, Judaic symbolism, we have some Muslim symbolism in there, or Islamic, Stoic philosophy, Egyptian mysticism. So it's more in some cases a matter of many different groups using the same symbolism in parallel without realizing it, or because Freemasonry was so ubiquitous, their symbolism kind of seeped into kind of day-to-day life. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. You have to join to find out. Well, Cheddar Bob must have been a very handsome fellow. There's an old German. There you go. I did not know about that German ritual. But the idea of the eye as being an important part of just an important symbol of humanity, that's incredibly common. I mean, uh, the eyes are the windows to the soul, covering the eyes, like all of that stuff. The eye as an important part of an important symbol of what it means to be human is very common. I don't know enough about Scientologists to say. People sometimes think there's a connection between us and Scientology, which there is not. To my knowledge, Scientologists believe in a supreme being, so they could join Freemasonry. I've never met a Scientologist Freemason, but yeah. Well, Gnosticism, to my knowledge, is a Greek word which means knowledge. Are you, James, arguing that Freemasonry is Gnostic? Because it's not. It has some Gnostic principles to it, I suppose, but it's not Gnosticism. And James, please hit like and subscribe. Everybody watching this, please hit like and subscribe. I'm going to be ending this stream shortly. I usually stream for about 2 hours. I will be back on at 1 a.m. Tonight, so that'll be fun. So I hope you guys will check me out then. Because who needs sleep? Well, I never said there's no occult in Freemasonry. What I would say is there's no occult in the modern sense, right? In ancient terms, occult just meant private or hidden. There's nothing necessarily nefarious about it. In the last 30 years or so, occult has taken on more sinister kind of undertones. And as a consequence, often people kind of use it to mean things in a more sinister way. So when I say there's no occult, what I mean is there's nothing sinister, but there is obviously private or hidden qualities to Freemasonry. Yes, Masonic brings up a very good point. Scientology is a religion, Freemasonry is not. One of the major differences between the two. Yes, Freemasonry is a secular organization. So I think I'm going to save because I had a really fun time interacting with the chat. I think I'll not go into my other topics today, instead tomorrow. I was happy to talk about the budget and again how Freemasons can look at some of those programs it supports or initiatives. I think tomorrow I'll talk about the American economy. I saw a couple stats. Home foreclosures in the States are up 20%. Um, some crypto stocks are collapsing, and why I think those things are relevant to and important to Freemasons and Freemasonry. I've said it a million times, you cannot separate the economic conditions of a country from Freemasonry therein. Thank you, question. That's very kind of you. I appreciate it. Not in my experience, James. We'll have to talk about it more on another stream because I've known many Freemasons, many of the 33rd degree, don't seem to be into anything evil to me. Said that, I'm always happy to discuss more. Not on this stream though, because I'm going to be ending this stream shortly. I think you'd have to, well, because they would want me to keep rising up the ranks, right? Um, and so they're not going to want somebody in Freemason who's doing good things if they're trying to do evil things. And I've done many good things through Freemasonry, not exclusively through, but through Freemasonry. So if they were up to evil, they'd want to get rid of me. They'd want to, you know, they'd want to select for evil, unless I am evil and don't know it. Um, yeah, but could they hide it from me, James? So here's my answer to that, and the answer I always give. Um, I've been a Mason for 20 years, right? I've been a Mason since 2007. I've attended over 1,000 Masonic events, and not just within Ontario. Like I've attended over 1,000 Masonic events around the world. I've been to Masonic Lodge meetings in Ontario and Manitoba in Canada and Nova Scotia. Then in many, many states in the United States, Texas, Illinois, Florida, California, Missouri, Philadelphia, New Jersey, Arizona, Nevada. Then I've been to events in Mexico, Nogales, Mexico, and Puerto Vallarta. Then the Philippines, Manila, and Brazil, Rio de Janeiro. And not all of those events I went to, I gave advance notice. In fact, most of them I didn't. Right. So if I was part of a group and every time I went to a Masonic event, I had to register, I had to let them know I was coming. I was excluded from some, whatever it is. I could understand their ability to hide things from me, but at a certain point, I feel like I've done enough, I've seen enough, I've been engaged enough. I've been the worshipful master of my lodge 6 times. I've been to Scottish Rite events. I've sat with 33rds. There's this idea of like, how much more do I need to see? How much more do I need to do? At what point have I seen enough sufficiently? Um, well, I mean, in many different ways, question. It is a broad question. Um, well, I know there are events outside of my awareness. My point is, if I've seen a sufficient number of events, right, I can make an educated guess about the ones I can't make it to. It's kind of like saying, I'm trying to think of an example. Um, like I will never be able to attend every Masonic event, right? I will never be able to attend, even if I took every degree in North American regular Masonry. So that would be every, aside from my first few degrees and the 18th degree I've already taken, all of the consistory stuff, all of the consistory stuff, all of the York Rite stuff, the shrine. I could still go to Europe and go to Memphis, and that's another 99 degrees. And then there's different rites. I could take the Scottish Rite first 3 degrees. There's always going to be an event or something I didn't do or haven't had the chance to learn about yet. But I think I've seen enough firsthand experience or had enough firsthand experience to be able to make an educated guess based on what I've seen, right? I mean, how many meetings would I need to attend to be able to make an educated guess as to what Freemasons are up to, right? And whether it is an organization for good or bad, right? How many years do I need to be a Mason? How many meetings do I need to attend? In how many um, countries, right? Because what I found is for a lot of people who have negative views of Freemasonry, usually the argument goes, there's always something you haven't seen, right? So I've seen 33rd degree Masons, say I'm a 33rd degree Mason, and we're a good group of guys. And the answer is, well, you would know the truth if you joined Memphis and got the 99th degree, right? So, well, in that case, it's kind of an unprovable thing, right? It's an unfalsifiable claim because the argument will always be the true Freemasons don't invite me into their evil groups, right? It's one of those things that's kind of unfalsifiable, um, right? Because if the argument goes, I don't do any calls at this point, James. The true evil Freemasons would not invite you in. Well, then I'll never be able to prove or disprove your hypothesis. All I could say is I've never seen any evidence of evil, some evil group within Freemasonry. And if the argument is, well, that's because they would hide the evidence from you, there's no way I can unfalsify that, right? That would be like saying to you, James, like, how do I know you're not a bad dude? And if you tell me, well, because I'm not, I could just say, well, you're just going to hide all the bad things you do, right? There's no way to prove the negative. If you want to come on this stream, by all means, like one day we could do a live stream together. We could talk about it, or you could, write something and put it on. It just seems to me, right? It seems to me your basic argument is the bad things within Freemasonry will be hidden from you. My response would be, if that is the case, then I could say the same thing to you, right? I could say, how do I know you're not hiding the bad things from me? At a certain point, I have to go based on my personal experiences and my personal, I have to go based on my personal experiences combined with the length of time I've been a Freemason and the amount of things I've seen, right? If I'd been a Freemason for a week, I think you'd have a fair argument, James, right? You'd have a fair argument, which would be to say, how could you know it's been a week? But I do feel there's a certain number of years and experiences and hours dedicated to something that I'm comfortable making some observations. Um, he wrote a book called Masonica Commedia. It's about Freemasonry and the Divine Comedy. If you're a fan of Dante, you should check it out. You can order it on Amazon. Masonic Commedia, Freemasonry and the Divine Comedy. Um, I think Freemasons are good too. I think Freemasonry is good, the Fat Muppet. I think Freemasonry is good. I think Freemasons, it's a little bit more complicated than that, unfortunately. Freemasons are people, which means we have both good and bad within us. But I think if you are following Masonic philosophies and Masonic ideals, then Freemasonry will direct you towards goodness and towards building a stronger community. So it's not that Freemasons are good, rather, Freemasons are human beings that exist, um, that have within themselves both the capacity for good and bad. But I think Freemasonry is good, and it has helped me be a better person. Question, you'll have to order the book, Masonic Commedia. Let me actually get the exact title. Well, Freemasonry has been around officially since 1717. I know the Divine Comedy predates that, but there is, within Freemasonry, there's a lot of symbolism and philosophies that can be found in a lot of different works that even predate it, such as the Divine Comedy. It's the same way that I've written about lessons that Freemasonry can derive from the movie Moneyball and the book. That's not to say the movie and the book were written with Freemasonry in mind, but rather we as Freemasons can take lessons from it and apply it to our own works. In the same way, the Divine Comedy is the same thing. So go to Google, type in Masonic Commedia, Freemasonry, and the Divine Comedy, and order it from Amazon. It's a great book. Or actually, I say that I haven't actually read it yet, but the author is a great author. I look forward to reading it. And I love Dante. I was saying I've read The Inferno. I read Paradise, never read Purgatory. I'll have to go back and read that one at some point. When it comes to, somebody asked me about how do Freemasons support one another. There's a lot of different ways. I've known at least two Freemasons who would have been homeless were it not for Freemasons stepping in and providing benevolence. I think it's a great episode, Ollie. But the other thing I'd say is, I've talked about this before. There's all sorts of evidence that human beings are healthier, are happier, do better when they are within a group or part of a group. There was a study that showed if you're a Mason, if you have a heart attack or a stroke and are in hospital, you're 2.5 times more likely to die or have a secondary event if you do not receive any visitors. So if your brother's in the hospital and you're visiting him, and I've actually talked to nurses who've mentioned Masons tend to get more visitors in hospital than other people. What that does for your mental health is a pretty big deal. And your physical health as well. We help give people confidence, helping them with public speaking, things like that. There's lots of different ways that we support each other. Ultimately, to be a Freemason is to try to fulfill that desire for human, for brotherhood, which we all have. Oli, I love that episode. Please hit like and subscribe. To everybody watching this, please take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button. I'm going to be jumping off the stream soon. I do hope to be back on. I will be back on at 1 a.m. tonight, and then tomorrow at 1 p.m. once again. Awesome, Ollie. Do you mind if I ask which order? I think they're all great. I support fraternal orders. I support civic institutions in general. I don't know what that is. Is it old? Is it big? How old is Par Brickle? Out of curiosity. It's from 17. That is awesome. Very cool. I mean, I've said it before. We in Freemasonry, we can't afford to be judging any like or want us to be successful but not support other fraternal orders and organizations and civic organizations. I think it's critical that we support them all, because as they do well, we will do well. That's an interesting question. I do you recall who the policeman was or what the interview was? I'd love to check it out. Because maybe if it's on YouTube, I'll watch it, maybe even respond to it, see what they're saying. Channel is YouTube Heretics. I'll check it out, see what I can find. All right, guys, I think I will end this stream. Once again, thank you all so much for being here. As I mentioned, I do these streams every Monday through Friday, 1 p.m., 1 a.m. And on weekends, I often have specific posts or content or interviews. I look forward to seeing you all soon. All right, thank you guys so much. Sorry, I'll just answer your question. There can be. Many lodges have a designated organist who can perform music during rituals. There can be choirs, but not usually in a blue lodge or like the first 3 degrees. You usually see that in Scottish Rite degrees. All right, guys, thank you so much. Have an excellent rest of your day.